Good evening, hello and welcome. My name is Seth. This is Sweet Chariot, and your boy has finally got around to, well, it's vaguely attractive. It'll pass as a studio background with the spoke horse. Yeah, put up some logs to cover the crap that we got stacked up here. But yeah, it's been a long day, and I'm here in my spare time between my freelance jobs to try and share some information with what little credentials I have, which I'll try and demonstrate. But that's got to be worth a sub, right? I'll try and keep up the energy, keep it interesting, and yeah, help me build this channel. It'll be grand to be able to make a living off of this. Make a living off of what is historically a difficult thing to make a living off of. And I'll see if I can explain that without too many ers. Let's get me the bow that I'm gonna sculpt. Yeah, that's how we do this. Well, I'll give you my little lecture. Yeah, we're not gonna be doing any close-ups of actual sculpting techniques. I'm gonna try and touch on the theory, the concept, some of the key things to keep in mind when you're sculpting, because sculpting is what we're doing here. I know it says in the title that it's you self-bow making, but you don't so much make a self-bow like you would a composite bow. It's more releasing. You release your self-bow from the log that you've managed to find, and that's where the sculpting starts. So yeah, quick disclaimer: I am not experienced in carving. Experienced at carving in any way, shape or form. I don't have a carving knife set. That is the most complex knife I've got, unless you prefer the Opinel. Both good knives. But yeah, there is one type of sculpting, carving that I've done here. Two, I guess, but I've found sticks and bows to be very similar skill set wise. You're just trying to make that not bend. And the opposite here. So yeah, what do I mean by historically difficult to make a living off of this? You got to chuck back 500 years or so. There's actually used to be some quite strict laws around yew bow making, being that it was such the most advanced weapon at the time. Very an expensive thing. The wood is hard to come by, and of course at the time, they cut it all down. All the yew trees that were here, they're very slow growing trees, so they were very quickly used up to make bows with. And that created, sort of gave rise to a law that a yew bow maker, also a bowyer, had to make, for every yew bow that they made, they had to make a bow from a second string wood. A second string wood being something like ash, like what we got here, or hazel potentially. Yeah, there's a few, maple. What else? Come on, they're all escaping me. Yeah, maple, oak. But oak will probably be used in other building materials. It's a good boat making material. That's why we've got so much of it here, I believe. Yeah, there's a huge amount of history tied up with all of this. And the fact of the matter is, a good yew stave. Something that's straight without any knots. I see this one does. A certain variety of yew that it is, I'm not entirely sure. I've much more success with the Pacific yew that I've come across, as opposed to this, which is potentially common yew or fast growing yew. I'm not sure. It's not something I'm a professional at. And there was a lot to learn when it comes to identifying trees. Yeah, a good bow making piece is hard to come by. In today's money, £100 will get you a nice piece of wood. And once again, this is the common yew stuff, not even the high grade stuff. And it was grown here, and it's low land as well, by the coast, which I hear is bad for bow ash. Grows a lot here, but according to one of the people who's commented on the videos, the environment here isn't great for making dense ash. Or at least I know that when it comes to yew, the higher the better. Obviously, the slower the growing conditions, the closer the rings are together, the denser the wood is, the faster the bow is the thinking. So yes, like I say, a decent piece of self bow wood could set you anywhere between 100 and 400 pounds, depending on where it's come from, its credentials and so on, how nice and straight and perfect it is. So yes, it's and of course from there's no guarantee that it's going to make a bow. It could look great, it could look like a really nice piece, and then you start taking away, you start releasing the bow that's underneath, and you start finding things that are going to cause you trouble. Obviously, the better the bow maker, the more experienced, you're going to be able to deal with those things. A bow will let go either because of something you did wrong, something that you didn't expect with well, you can't say that the branch has done it wrong, or the stave, sorry, has done it wrong. You could look at it that way. But this imperfection in the stave that has caught you out, that has written the piece off as a viable bow, or a combination of the two. Something that you should have been able to overcome, but honestly, I've got one right here. There's a little knot right here. You could look at that and go, that's not going to be a problem, or you could consider it and try and sort of work your way around it, and it could let go anyway. Shit happens when you're doing this. You've just got to sort of try and learn as best you can from each fail, and apply it to the next time you come across that issue is the best thing to do, which this one has had a few. But yeah, the sculpting eye, it starts right away. That's what I wanted to talk about. You spot it. I mean, this is the one, I don't know if anyone saw. Let's say regular people, hello. Thanks again for all the subscribers, I should say. 646, I think it was, last count. My mate Treves, last one to subscribe. Thanks, buddy. Yes, thank you, everyone. So to anyone who might have seen the short that I made the other day when I was walking the dog collecting wood, this is a piece that I found then, as well as this future walking stick. I say future walking stick because it was green. It's very green, extremely fresh. It's sort of what I'm talking about when you go out looking for things. Go out with a certain mindset. You can find things. And this was a branch that was blown off of a yew tree about, I don't know, a month and a half ago, 2 months maybe. So the leaves were clearly dead. All the needles were brown. So it's clearly disconnected from the tree. So there's no chance of it sprouting back, which you can do. It's got a small amount of we'll say that if it falls over at the trunk, if it's like 10% of the root structure or the trunk is still intact, it's going to start sending up new shoots. Ties in with sort of part of the folklore around yew trees, where you find it in graveyards, to do with life and death, rebirth. There's too much folklore to go into with you right now. Let's stick to what we're here to talk about, which is the sculpting. And yeah, when I found this branch, what you got to do is start sort of squinting at it, peering at it a little bit, and see if you can see a bow in all of that. You need to start by knowing what you need to look for. Let's just do it on this. So what you want no knots on your back. Doesn't really matter on the other side as much. You can get away with a lot more imperfections, and this is exactly what this bow has done. Got a thin, weird mix of heart and sapwood here, which has somehow managed to retain its structure. There's a tiny bit of backset, and there was a dip. There's a dip in the grain here, which almost ripped the stave off from the very start. So it's it's potentially it's looking really good. At each stage, I've been surprised, holding its form quite well. But yes, you're after a clean back. So when it starts to bend, you haven't got any strange formations in the grain that don't like to do that don't bend together orderly. So yeah, you got to try and find that somewhere, either on a tree. I mean, when you're dealing with ash or hazel or other woods, I'm pretty sure that rule is universal with all of them. They're all going to behave in the same way. They're going to be tested, stretched, so you need the most sort of orderly piece that you can. And with you bow making, you can navigate your way if you had a piece that, because the wood is so valuable and so good at making bows. It is, and we've seen it done. We've definitely seen it done. What's it? Dreamcraft bows. I've seen a video of his lately. I think it was titled "A Bow with Character," making a bow with character. Now it's dealing specifically with you, and the fact that you can leave these imperfections in. Yeah, you're going to go find good bits of bow wood that have just a few imperfections that are going to cause you trouble, but it can work. You can make it work if you leave the material there and sort of build that into the tiller of the bow. There's no well, no. I was going to say there's no reason why you shouldn't embark on a piece that's not perfect, but there definitely is, because they take a lot of energy. Let's say this piece is going to be difficult to deal with, because I can see already it's not going to split well at all. At least in one go. We have to sort of look at. You might not be able to see the frame, but the top of the slog. Unless I make it much shorter and just deal with this piece. This knot's going to make it difficult to split. It's not a wide piece, so there's not much margin for error there. So I've got to first spot a potential bow in a big lump of wood in the trees somewhere. Like I say, be it whatever species of tree you're dealing with. Yeah, you got to give it a good old squint. Try and picture, try and visualize the bow, because you're gonna, like I say, you're gonna try and release it. The tree's done the work. The tree's done the making of the bow. You need to now negotiate it, release it from the piece of wood. Each piece of wood is going to be different, and like I say, this one looks like it's going to be difficult, but it's a really nice back piece. It's really nice. There's no imperfections, and it's nice and straight. Doesn't bend. Ideally, you'd want it front set already, because that's what we're going to try and do. With the bow, we're going to try and make it sort of stand forward from the handle rather than back set. And it's easier to do if you have a piece which is front set already, like this ash piece here. That's the outside where the bark would have been. You see how it's already bending in the shape that we want to try and achieve. So that one's already got energy stored into it. This was outdoor foraged as well. This is the same wood that I made that katana. Once again, to subscribers, thanks guys. If you're following the channel, you might have seen the wood sword that I've made. Just gives you a chance to test out the wood and see how it's coming along, and it is hardened up a lot, big time. So sounding good. I think this one might work. So I'm gonna plan that one out properly. Make sure that I do that one correctly. Yeah, with ash, I think it's a lot easier to see the bow. it's a much more orderly wood. Yeah, as long as you've got, I'll tell you what, this one was very twisty. This one is far straighter. If you've got a nice straight orderly piece, the whole process is much more easy. Which is why these, the straight perfect pieces are favoured, because they save you so much time and energy. But if you've got the eye, if you've got that squint, you could take a fairly twisty piece. There's one over there. I won't grab them down. Yeah, you could take a fairly twisty piece and you can still achieve the stave, knowing that you can pull everything back with steam, heat guns, things like that, if you've got the time and the jig skills. Yeah, if you can pick yourself a nice piece, you're going to save a lot of energy in that regard. Right, so sculpting, back to sculpting. You start from the very start, the first cut, because you with your bow saw or chainsaw or whatever, you could cut through a bow that you didn't see was there. And that's a shame. That's a real shame with you. Sort of the rule sort of tends to be, I mean, if you've got a long piece of yew, you need to make a bow that is as long as you can make from that piece of yew. It's a real shame to cut it down. And I mean, if something goes wrong in the process, maybe part of why English longbows are part of well, an English longbow is made, I've said this before on the channel, it's a cheap process. It makes a fantastic bow, let's not mess around, but it relies on a very particular piece of wood. Yeah, everything's straight already, everything's clean, and you're not dealing with having to reshape anything too dramatically, do recurve and things like this. Well, I think they did. Yeah, so if you're trying to make bows under pressure in a medieval war, you want the most simple, same requirements for making weapons now. You want the most simple, cost-effective way of doing that, and also field effective. So this is why the English longbow is cool. Ties in with English history and sort of and everyone else. Lots of people use bows around that time, but we're talking about England today. So yeah, that's why we should be interested in this. It made up this one, I forget what it is, 10 or 20,000 years ago. they were using this type of bow. The home guard bow is an example of a prehistoric self bow. Neanderthals maybe using bows. I'm no expert once again in this. This is, yeah, I consider myself a buffet intellectual. There's a lot to know. But thousands of years ago, before the existence of monarchies and the desire to take over entire countries, we were developing these things. Sculpting. Yeah, so yeah, back to it. Sorry, sculpting. You can get maybe a good time to talk about the sticks. This is where I started. So it's still the same process when you're doing a pole. When you're working the pole, you need to sculpt it down. This is what my sticks begin life as. This one's quite a chunky example, really. It's about as thick as I'd want to go to whittle it down to a stick. It's an awful waste of wood. But this is quite far gone. This is quite decayed already. This is the sapwoods here. You can literally just scrape through to the heartwood. So and they make a really nice stick. It's going to take a lot of time, but it's going to be worth it. I hope, I believe. So yeah, in with the sticks, you need to visualize your stick in there, because you could cut through a handle that you could have made. So then you need to you need to visually plan it out. I mean, at some point you're gonna be able to physically plan it out, mark it out. But for the first stages with sculpting, you need to. Well, I squint here. I go, right, that was it. A blow apart diagram. We've all done IKEA furniture, right? So IKEA furniture, in case you didn't hear that. Or anyone who's done any sort of mechanical type stuff, you'll know a blow apart diagram. It's the diagram that shows the item that you're trying to construct or deconstruct in a blown apart form. You need to see the piece of wood like that, sort of blow apart the bark, blow apart all the bits that you don't want to be there, and try and see the thing that you want to retain underneath. Obviously it's entirely possible that not everyone's brains work like this. Little I know about psychology, we don't all experience consciousness in the same way. So I could just say, yeah, you just look at it like this. It could be extremely difficult, potentially, I'm not sure, for some people to grasp that concept and have a mental picture like that. We honestly don't know, right? If you know, you know. But this is the way that I see it. You sort of look at it and say, experience comes with time. The more times you've done it, the easier it gets to see that process happen, because you've seen it in long form. Then you can sort of squeeze it down into this little sort of expectation that you have of that particular piece of wood. And once again, any potential problems that you might want to run into. Yeah, so what's a good way to do it? So we start off with a big piece here. I should be working on this bow, is what I should be doing, because the whole thing, from this lump here to then splitting it, get your axes or whatever way that you can get at your piece of wood. Let's get this one up. This is quite a twisty one, but it's a good example of a piece that wasn't gonna split well, but still has a really nice back to it. So yeah, if you've got the energy, if you've got the time, the nous, the skills, the tools, you can release those bits of wood and get at the stave. And then if you're confident in reshaping the thing, you've got a lovely, really nice stave. Because what I have found is that once you have the decent piece of wood, nice clean backed piece of wood, it will reshape and rejigger into what you want it to do. Yew is a powerful wood. It's a legendary bow wood. And yeah, we've known about it for a very long time. Well, I think the home guard bow that was found was witch elm, which is not a wood that I'm familiar with at all. But all I do know it is a very good bow wood. Sort of the same sort of regard as ash. They make a very simple, stout, decent self bow. Whereas yew makes a very, very, very good self bow, but it is trickier to work with, and there's more ways that it can let you down. So the better you get at sculpting them and learning the wood, the more reliable the bow will be, and the quicker you get at it. So yeah. But with splitting, it is very easy just to ruin the whole thing. This is why if you're doing something like this, you want to be particularly delicate, navigating the knots and such. Because if you go ahead and try and save time in removing the wood and just doing one big split, I mean, this sort of This one, even though it's very straight and orderly, it's stuff like this. If you pick up a grain that goes in a direction that you want to retain for your bow, something just fell down there. I'm hoping it's a stack of stuff and not an intruder. I don't hear footsteps. It's cool. We've got weapons up here, so I ain't afraid. Yeah, we were stacking stuff up earlier. Something slipped over. Sorry, got distracted. Yeah, if you try and rush and save time, which is tempting to do, because well, in my case, I'd cut a bunch of logs and hoiked them out the forest, and the whole you want to get it done. Yeah, it was summertime as well. I think I was particularly keen to get them split and drying out. These were super wet. Once again, the fast growing stuff, definitely taking a risk on this. It was not cured when I first found it. So I wanted to get it dried out nice and quick and start learning bows. That was my problem. Also why I would consider working on twisty bits of wood. Okay, like I say, because it's hard to come by. I've been very fortunate in the trees that I found, fallen over in the perfect condition. Well, perfect conditions, I should say. Yeah, caught it before it rotted. Yeah, this one shoots. Hopefully, you're going to find out how quick soon. But yeah, this is outdoor cured wood. You can see bits of rot in here. You can see it rot. So it'll be fungal activity that's left a bit of black staining. The bow works. The bow works great. Yeah, if I can get the tips finished off, which I should probably do. So yeah, back to sculpting. We will be sculpting the tips. This is another, well, sorry, this is what I said. From start to finish, the whole thing, you need to keep that sculpting eye. So imagining what you need to leave behind. So I've waffled a lot here, and I'll try and keep it concise now. Yeah, feeling nicely lit in my little studio here. I hope it's attractive enough. Doesn't look completely amateur. Although that's sort of what we are. We're getting there. We're getting there. I think this one is gonna. If I can get the right arrow for it, well, I'm keen to get the exact arrow for it and see how it's performing, because it feels good. It's nicely front set. I'm not going to play around with it anymore now. It's caused me trouble being so wiggly. It's now all very nicely lined up. There we go. That's my next segue. In terms of sculpting, we've got the bow limbs that need to be sculpted. You got, like I just said, you need to sort of see your bow and start removing material around the bow that you're trying to release. Here, and that, excuse me, will make up your bow limbs. You need to make sure you got a nice back, and then you've you created your belly in the taper that you're going to be able to start removing material again. The whole process is about leaving enough material for the next process, because you're going to go through bigger tools. You start off with a big old saw, messy tool to go out wood with, and axes. Axes and splitting will leave all these splinters. It's not a fine finish at all. So you get into it with your rasp. You start taking material away there, and your draw knife, and each time it will get smoother. Let's see your rasp here. That leaves sort of a millimeter sort of length gouge. So, and probably half that sort of depth. It's quite it's a decent gouge it can leave if you're going across the grain. And of course, you want a smooth finish on your bow. You don't want any loose splinters coming off. So before you're done, you don't want to go. When you're doing a primal bow, you could do it with a stone if you want to. As long as it works, it works. We want to make them a bit sweeter than that. And let's say you need to finish with your rasp, leaving enough material to work through with your next grade, which obviously probably be left my card scraper over there with pine resin on it. That'd be a card scraper, which also leaves imperfections. So to get the fine finish, obviously we have to work our way down to sandpaper. We have power consideration and draw length consideration to deal with here as well. So when you get to this stage, I've jumped ahead a little bit here. That is a stave released from a log, ready for this process that I'm now just starting to explain. What would go in now here, this is one, sorry, started by my mate Craig before I got this set up. I think he started it with the axe, and before I got a hold of a decent draw knife. So now it would be a case of going in with the draw knife, That layer of sapwood looks pretty good, a decent amount. I'd probably not want to take the draw knife to that anymore. You can maybe rasp it and clean it up a little bit. Do that stage, that rasp will take off these grooves really well and start to smoothen it out. Well, yeah, look at it this way. We still need to use the rasp, card scraper, and sandpaper on it. So to be able to do that, you need a certain amount of material left to work it down to this very particular taper that we're going to work from your handle down to the tip. And all of that needs to be sculpted together. So you need to be, each stage, remembering to leave enough material for your next tool. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, if you're trying to achieve a nice fine finish and also the power that you want. I have to say a few times now, in the pursuit of making the bow extremely tidy and even and perfectly tillered, it has gone past the power point that I wanted. But the earlier bows I was doing, they were above the power point that I wanted. I was afraid to take material away. So that's where the bow maker skill, you know, starts to develop. I can argue, I think, that it's starting here. There will be string follow, there always is in these Selfbows. I don't know, I think you have to have the perfectly grown and cured piece of wood to have a Selfbow that doesn't backset after you fired it a bunch of times. But each time I've done it, they like to return. So you're looking at this angle. Yeah, they are in front of the handle. That's the thing. The tips are front set of the back of the handle, but I could still try and aim to get them front set of the front of the handle. That would be optimum in this design of bow for arrow speed. That's optimum. It works really well. And I've now got to decide how much farther do I want to try and push this piece of wood. I'll try and get a slightly better tiller out of here, and then try and match both these limbs up by adding heat again and trying to front set them and recurve, reflex them slightly. Sorry, yeah, because like I say, because this was a twisty piece of wood, it's already had a lot of heat given to it. Yeah, it's taking time. So I don't know. I'm gonna ask some people. I think. Well, I could ask you guys right now. Stop knocking it against things. Do I do more to this? Do I need to try? See if you can see it. Do I need to try and front set these tips more? I mean, the tip overlays are going to give it a little bit of what we're trying to achieve with the reflex. But yeah, to my experienced bow makers, is it flat enough? Is it flat enough to be a flat bow? Yes, I know the quality of the wood will affect the speed, but is this, yeah, well, what I'm going to do is get myself to, I still haven't got a chronograph, so I'm going to get myself, and I need to get some fletchings, and maybe some more beeswax, because I've got some more pine resin here. I've learnt more about pine resin, how you're supposed to process it, and it's going to be fun. It's, yeah, that's a very interesting byproduct of trees, which is what we're trying to appreciate here. I've not seen much in the way of resin on you, if I'm honest. It's very much a pine tree thing. I think this is ponderosa pine, from the long needles and the sort of globby, thick resin. If it was a Douglas fir, or maybe, I don't know about the other trees. I've watched someone else's video, soaked up some knowledge very quickly. If it was a Douglas fir, it'd be dripping off the tree. Your ponderosa pine and the long needles, obviously, and the bark that I had identified. Yes, we got ponderosa pine resin. What you can do is add oils and seal your wood with that. I'm going to do that. Sorry, I've gone on a little tangent here. But yes, sculpting. Not to talk about sealing and resin. I will do another video on that. That's going to be fun. You got to sculpt the handle into the middle of the thing, yeah, and your tips. I mean, the tips you can do independently, and as long as you've got everything else lined up as it should be, your tip should be good. Yeah, much easier to making sure the handle's all in place. Because obviously, I had to negotiate the limbs out of the piece of wood and hope that you know everything lines up straight, and you're going to lose material in the process of doing that. And then you've got to make sure that the handle, so you're going to cut material away. On this design of bow anyway, it's a benefit of the English longbow, that pole design. The bow doesn't need the base of the limbs to be this wide. The structure comes from that dimension running up the bow and in a long limb, because obviously a deeper limb isn't going to bend as well as a flat limb is. As far that could well be the key in it, in the way that it stores energy and returns the. See, the longbow limbs are slow. They optimize for smoothness of shooting longbows. They're not the fastest, I don't think, unless you're talking war bows, heavier bows, of course. But they're incredibly smooth and accurate to shoot. I don't know. Sorry, I'm slouching here. Ooh, stretch my shoulders off a wee bit. Yeah, so when it comes to sculpting the handle, you've got to be very considerate, and especially on a U-bow, because you've got sorry, U-bow, horsebow style handle. I mean, with whatever design you're doing, the whole nature of the bow is to put an arrow past the center of the bow here, be it spine so that the arrow bends around it, or your modern style composite bows where extra structure is added to the middle so it's not going to snap, and you can properly center cut and fire a very stiff, lightweight arrow. I have achieved it on the U-bows, the proper center cut, but you've got to be very considerate about leaving a lot of material around the middle. Obviously, being the center of the bow, it's where all the strain goes. So you need to sculpt it to be in the center of the string line here to accommodate your arrow actually performing in any way, or shape or form off of the middle here. I think you'll often see a crudely cut survival bow being fired like this, because what you can do, it doesn't matter as much about, well, I'd say matter, always matters, because your arrow is going to behave in a certain way. But yeah, if you made a basic bow and a basic arrow, it's not going to be particularly accurate anyway. So the whole idea is you fire over the bow. If you fired it straight like that, the arrow would kick off wildly, probably in that direction. But if you fire, well, either way, you'd find out pretty quick. So if you fire like this, you can adjust the trajectory of your off arrow spine in a way that you can get it to perform at least reasonably well. That's the way I understand it anyway, because you can bodge a shot quite nicely by firing over the bow like that. Yeah, maybe it allows you to get the bow out of the way as well, which is what Katra is all about in this regard. Designed to fire off the right hand side of the bow here, because you've got a very natural movement. The string goes away from your arm. You've got a natural movement to get the bow out of the way. So if you've got your technique and timing right, it doesn't matter that the bow is in the way, which is what I'm trying to achieve here. We've got a 20,000, many thousands of year old bow design that, well, probably existed before animal husbandry in a way that people were riding on the backs of horses. Who knows if it was even the horses we know it at that time. Probably a variety of different types of horse-like creatures that we don't have anymore. But yeah, ancient limb design, tried and tested ancient limb design with a carved, sculpted horsebow handle. Still sculpting. The rule is sculpt the limbs first, then sculpt the handle. Well, so you do some very basic knocks. This is what we're going to do this evening. Well, what I'm going to do this evening, probably once I've stopped rambling, because it's hard to do both, is take the rasp to the tips. You can see underneath there, I got some very basic knocks put in. I could fire the bow with just those knocks. I'm going to have to be very mindful of, just adjust the length of the string, which I'm probably going to need to do anyway on this one. But it's going to change the brace height, the tip overlays here. So I'm going to have to think about what length the string needs to be. And it's going to protect the back of the bow. This is what makes it work, this white versus orange. So you don't want to cut into that. As soon as you violate that structure, that's when things break. But people who have been here before, you probably know this. I imagine the people watching this channel are either people who know about bow making, or people who are trying to learn about bow making. I'm one of the people who's trying to learn, or try to learn about bow making and trying to demonstrate the things that I've learned. No pro at all, but I think I'm coming along. Does that make sense? So I can share the learning experience that I've just had, and now and try and sort of regurgitate it to you. And it as much as the fine details, it comes down to just a mindset of how to approach the thing, which is what I'm trying to drive at. Yes, you soak up the details as we chat away about it. You probably have, if you've gone ahead and done this, you probably got a question in your mind that you want answering. And there's a lot of videos on YouTube. You never know exactly what to go for, really, do you? Just start soaking it up, and if things start to make sense, you can then apply them. And yeah, and you will start asking questions for sure if you're trying to optimize it anyway, which is what I'm trying to do. Yeah, sculpt. Start. Middle. Now we're towards the end here. I would like to get this done this evening, but it's going to be, it is going to be quite a lot. So yeah, that's what I was going to mention. A little bit of actual hands-on skill now, I guess. Lights. We're actually going to start working. Your sculpting eye, you've already used it on your logs. Through the whole splitting process, that is much more brute force. I mean, that's why I've talked about it like this. Sorry if I'm starting to waffle. Like I said, it's been a long evening. I've had this pinging around my mind, so I'm trying to sort of congeal it all into something that makes sense. But yeah, when it comes to you're splitting your logs and taking it from trees and whatnot, you wouldn't think of that as sculpting. That's where the process starts. It's brute force, and it is sort of sculpting. Now we're into the bows. That is very much sculpting. Like I say, you got to start smoothing everything down, making sure everything is the same dimensions. We're looking for that symmetry. Part of why bows are so beautiful, right? Everything's beautifully even, the way it bends, the way it looks. Yeah, and then we sculpt limbs that are going to work. Do that with this taper. We sculpt a handle that's going to work with the arrow and also feel good in the hand. That's going to change over many different bow designs. Then, like I say, we had temporary knocks here. Now we need to make the tips perfect. Yeah. Perfect is a strong word. They got to be functional, and they got to be attractive. And I guess those things often come hand in hand. This is when you're talking about the handle. To make it function as it's supposed to be, it ends up looking attractive. This is human nature. We're very strange creatures like that. Cool. So how do I approach this? I got to decide what is going to be attractive and functional on this particular bow. Now it's a home guard bow, which were extremely pointy, so that's stuck in my head. Do I make these tips extra pointy to as a little head nod to that particular bow, or do I stick with? I'm gonna put that little one. Or do I stick with the... I've lost a bow. Ah, no, it's right in front of me. It's so thin, I didn't see it. Yeah, or do I stick with the design that I've favoured on most of my bows, pretty much? A slightly like snub-nosed tip, a slightly flat tip, because you're gonna string it on the floor. You're gonna string it badly. So I wanted a tip that was, well, at least I am. In making bows, you get pretty complacent and you try and save time. You don't try and save time there. You ruin an entire stave there. But yeah, once you've made your tips, you know how strong they are. I say I've got a piece of carpet down here, which I know is fine. You end up stringing them badly. You string them on the floor, and I wanted a tip that was gonna stand up to that. There's no reason why it shouldn't do both, because it needs to be narrow, it needs to be lightweight and come to a point, and take as much material away as you can. I mean, yeah, you're probably arguing, you'd have to test it, of course, but yeah, I mean, if I took a millimetre off of either side, let's say, so you're much more likely to break it on the floor if you did it that way. But if you decided to use a stringer, as you probably should, and you had the tip like that, would it move quicker? A smaller tip begins quicker, and when you let go of the string, the whole process is just accelerated. So you want to be getting as small a tip as you can, as little material on there. But this is what you got to decide. If you take away too much material, you're going to weaken it, and it's not going to work as a knock at all. I can see I need to take more material away in here because the string wants to move across that area. Yeah, I was keen to just get this one working, so it's a proof of concept for me. One of the tips snapped off, so I had to take the other tip off in the plan of adding these bits of mahogany and see if I could get it to work. So I was, you don't want to say rush, but I was, accelerated. I want to say cut corners, How did I do this? I think I just, yeah. I went ahead and made it work, and then I unwrapped it all again and sort of polished it up once it, once it made sense, once it proved it was actually going to do what I wanted it to, and it drew to a decent length. Then it was worth going back and doing the extra sculpting to bring it down, but it still needs a little bit more. Can take away. I don't know how tough this mahogany is, if I'm honest. You could easily take away too much, and then boom, all of a sudden you've lost a tip, and you've got some work to do. So yeah, all these things you need to consider before you've even picked up your tool and started taking material away. But when you do start taking material away, slowly does it. Just easily does it. You can't put, well, you can try and put material back in various ways, but it's much more difficult to put material back than it is to take it away. So easy does it, nice and gently. Small tools, obviously depends on, cut myself in mahogany there, obviously depends on what you have access to. So if you only have this knife to do the entire process, which you probably could, I mean, you could start, carving away like this. Whatever tools you use for the process, and this is quite an elaborate setup here, isn't it? Not everyone's going to have access to this. You can do it all with a knife. A Bowie knife, you could take down a tree and split the tree and literally do the whole process. But whatever tools, setup you're using to do it, you want to keep that in mind. And slowly and surely, you can't put material back. Once it's gone, it's gone. Or at least you've caused yourself problems. You can remove the whole tip again. Redo the piece the same that you did this end. Before I've even stuck them on the bow here, they were quite a ball ache to get the same, and the more you can get them the same before they go on the back of the bow here, the less work you have to do when they're on here and risking scratching your already lovely sculpted piece of wood that you've got. Have I have I mentioned that you're sculpting? The whole process is sculpting. It's fun. It's fun, guys. Thank you for joining me, by the way. Screen time is your life, and I hope I've exchanged some knowledge. I hope it's a bit of your life used well. And like I said, I'd love to build this channel, do it bigger and better. I mean, this is definitely not as good as it could be. This is brilliant. This is more than I deserve in terms of workspace. I've got good friends. Yeah, great friends. And it's who you know, not what you know, which will give you access in life. So that is what's been allowed me to be able to sit here in this space and jabber on about the sculpting process without actually doing any work. Here you go. Let me demonstrate the rasp. It's a fantastic tool for sculpting, and you can get different versions. I should have a Shinto rasp, but I've actually found that this is a tile file. Is a great shaping tool. It does leave some quite deep gouges behind. It's like tin grit sandpaper, if that makes sense. Extremely abrasive. But we can do our sculpting. We can gently shape with our nice lighting, nice even lighting, so you're not getting fooled by shadows and lines that you don't see. Nice and gently. Start taking material away. You see what I did there? Bit from that side, bit from that side. The whole thing's going to change as you start taking material away. As you're talking functionality of the bow, it could well alter that. I had to flatten the back of this piece of wood to get the tip on there, so that might well have changed the properties of the bend at the tip here. How active the very start of it is. Got to be mindfulness. And slow and steady. I guess that's the two things to take away from my little sculpting lecture I put together here. Sculpting lecture. Yeah, because I've become very familiar with this type of sculpting. No other type of carving or sculpting aside from the sticks. I did do a statue as well once. It was a fellow I sold a stick to. I sent him a picture of the forest where this piece of wood came from. Not this piece of wood. His piece of wood. And he circled a root on a fallen tree and asked if I could make a piece out of that, which I did. Took about a half an hour, maybe more to saw it off of the tree in the angle that I needed it. But yeah, that came together really well. I was quite surprised at that. All I really did was hollow it out and sort of sand it off so it could stand up in various dimensions. But yeah, it was lovely. I could say I was a commissioned sculptor. So yeah, it sort of went from there. That definitely, I forget the fella's name. I want to say Adrian, mate. No. Shame on me. Yeah, he's a good lad in Albuquerque. Yeah, good old boy. I would like him to get in contact again, actually, even if it's just to say hello on eBay. That's the only place I got contact with him. I lost his details. But yeah, I can. He's pushed me into something I had no idea I was going to do. I mean, dabbling with the sticks and just wondering, oh, I wonder if they're very pretty. I think they're nice. Let's see if this works. And positivity like that, and just that good energy from a stranger has pushed me down a road that is excellent. I feel so much goodness from this. I know I'm not sculpting still, but yeah. Talking about the power of sculpting still. It was still in the theory of sculpting, and I guess part of the theory is it's good for you. It's good for your relationships. It's good for what you do with your time and your energy, and you can end up making something very, very pretty if you appreciate just a certain thing, a certain few things, be it the nature of the wood, the design principles that have been put together many thousands of years ago. You know, people we would consider primitive, understood, were able to decipher that. And this is why I wanted to talk about pine pitch as well, because they understood this, the various chemical changes you can make to it to make it do the things that you want. They understood their trees and what they could make them do, and the value of it, what it brings. Yeah, that's something I forgot to mention earlier that I felt my mind going on to. I think that bows are in our DNA. When you're talking about our prehistoric ancestors, many thousands of years ago, were doing this. I think these have been in our consciousness for so long, they are in our DNA. Everyone loves bows. There's no one who doesn't like archery. And bows are awesome. You know, from your small kids all the way up to your grown-ass adults. We're all able to appreciate it. It's just something very, very cool. So I think that comes from something that's programmed into us. It means food, and that means warmth and energy and survival. I don't think it's a leap of the imagination at all. Yeah, and it's all done with a bit of sculpting. Yeah, I hope that's a video. I hope you've enjoyed that, and yeah, like I say, it's late. It's got on, and I had my dinner right before doing. Here come my excuses, by the way. I had my dinner right before doing this. Sort of logy, sort of sleepy, ready for a cup of tea. But I need to do some more of these tips. I'm gonna do it. I mean, I could try and save some time, and use bigger tools. Maybe take the saw across the back of here and take away a big chunk of wood rather than trying to scrape my way down nice and gently. Need to decide whether it's going to be pointy, flat, and then leave that bit behind. I hope that makes sense. The concept of sculpting. Yeah, half-assed. I should have been sculpting as I was doing it. I was supposed to kill two birds with one stone doing this video tonight. But instead, no, it's okay. We've made a video. We've showed off some different stages. Well, my staves here. I'll go through the staves at some point as well. We've got some hazel here, some ash, two different types of yew. Yeah, there's interesting things to be said about all of them. Birch is another one I'm going to be moving on to pretty soon. I need to go find myself a birch tree to turn into a bow, because we're going to fire harden that. And at the same time as fire hardening, I'm going to be processing this pine resin, and then maybe at the same time, maybe concentrate on the pine resin first, since I've never done it before. But next to a bonfire is where I want to do the birch bark processing as well. You can render pitch from it in the same way that you can with pine resin here. I didn't realize it's medicinal. It's got medicinal value as well, anti-inflammatory properties. It's about the most useful bushcraft product there is. bushcraft material, I should say. But yeah, sculpting's good. There's loads to learn, fun things to do. I need a cup of tea before I script some more of these tips away. Yeah, this one's going to be finished soon. I hope you liked the video. If you think I deserve a sub, I think I've waffled a little bit, but if you would subscribe, that'd be ace. And then I wouldn't have to do this in my spare time. Thanks, guys. I'll see you in the next one.